Good morning and welcome to Rising. It's Monday, so I'm joined remotely by Batya Ungar-Sargon, and we have a great show planned for you today. Hello, Batya.
Good morning, Robby. How are you?
I am doing just fine. It's wonderful to see you.
You too.
All right, Batya, President Biden is finding himself in quite a pickle. More classified documents from the Obama administration have been found on the private Delaware property of President Joe Biden. A personal attorney for the president confirmed the files turned up during a 13-hour Department of Justice search conducted in the home on Friday.
And as the classified document pile grows, some members of the president's own party are having trouble defending the commander-in-chief. Here's veteran Democratic Senator Dick Durbin on CNN yesterday.
Well, I'm concerned there's a standard that we follow when it comes to members of Congress and classified information. The door to my office is closed. The person who presents the document to me takes it out of a locked briefcase, hands it to me and watches as I read it. When I finish reading it, he takes it back and puts it in the briefcase and leaves the scene. I mean, that's how carefully we review these documents. To think that any of them ended up in boxes in storage one place or the other is just unacceptable.
So Robby, where are you on the documents gate?
Document gate. Look, I continue to think that one issue, a big issue, is that our government routinely flags as classified like everything because they try to keep their anti-transparency, and this is bipartisan. It's no matter who's in charge. They're anti-transparency, want to mark everything as classified because they don't want even bare minimum accountability if they can avoid it. So I think that continues to be an important theme here. But that said, look, Biden has now been caught with lots of documents, and I think it is legitimately embarrassing because of the perception that they threw the book at Trump or are prepared to throw the book at Trump over a similar transgression. Now, it's not exactly the same because Trump, importantly, did not agree to give them back. But, they raided his residence. That was embarrassing. Biden got on TV and, made remarks about it, that this is a very serious thing of a criminal nature. So, he's reaping what he reaps what he sows a little bit, even though I'm not, trying to establish some kind of equivalency between the two things, nor do I necessarily think at the end of the day it's all that important. But I actually said the same thing about the Trump documents that, like, okay, show me these are the nuclear secrets or the secret agreement with North Korea or whatever the libs were fantasizing about with the Trump documents, right? They're like, oh, this is surely the thing that's going to bring him down because people will be so outraged when they find out, these state secrets he was peddling to foreign countries. Of course, there's no evidence that it was anything serious or important whatsoever. Probably that's going to be the same case here, but there you go.
There is only one acceptable version of this. If you thought that Trump was a treasonous, if you used the word treason, if you used whatever word you used for Trump, is 100% applicable here. If, like me, you thought the whole Trump thing was a nothing burger, that's how you should feel about this as well. It is, as far as I'm concerned, it is exactly the same. The fact that, Biden is too, bound by norms to refuse to give them back is, to me, that's like totally beside the point. It just reveals that it is extremely easy to accidentally walk out of the White House with stuff you shouldn't. Totally agree with you. Way too much stuff is classified. Totally agree with you that there's very little evidence that the U.S. was actually harmed by any of this. The fact that it was in Trump's character to petulantly believe that these were his, and it was in Biden's character to probably, forget that he had them or what have you, that to me is meaningless. In both cases, I think that, the parade of people on cable news talking about how terrible it was, of course, in a partisan way, I just think that, these people from what people call the deep state, I don't put a lot of stock in that. I will say I do think that the left has a bit of a higher moral high ground in this case because, conservatives and Republicans were so adamant that it was a nothing burger when it was Trump, and now are so so adamant that it's a huge disaster that it was Biden. But if you watch CNN, they've been pretty harsh on the president. Now, on the right, there's a conspiracy theory that the reason they're being so harsh on the president right now is because they've had it and they want him not to run. And so they've decided that this is the thing they're going to hang him with in order to sort of gently give him the message, or not so gently, that, he should step aside in 2024. I don't know if that's true, but, it is heartening to see Democrats, Congresswoman Ilhan Omar said that she was bothered by it, and there has been a lot of hypocrisy on the right when it comes to the two standards. So, yeah.
We talked last week about, Joe Rogan mentioned the conspiracy that you just brought up, that this is the way his people get rid of him. That just doesn't make sense to me on several levels. One, look, if someone is within the Democratic coalition is sincerely working to get rid of Biden, to replace him with someone else, they're kind of just, aren't they obviously just working toward the detriment of the Democratic Party? They haven't really thought this through. Biden, no matter what I might think of him or you might think of him, just had a pretty stunning political success. We have to call a spade a spade. He had much better expected midterm results, much better midterm results than expected. And there's no obvious successor. There's no one better liked in the coalition than he is. You can imagine a world where there is, because you would expect he might be unpopular, given a lot of things going on, but he's the best they got. So anyone trying to show him the door, I don't really know what their master plan is. So I don't really I don't really think that's what's happening. I think, as you said, he just forgot about where some documents were. It is interesting, I agree with you, watching, for instance, CNN try to attempt to take this as seriously as they treated the Mar-a-Lago documents. I'm watching. They have what I would like a faux serious. They're trying to take it seriously, but maybe they know deep down that this is inherently not a very serious thing, so it comes across as sort of fake. I think it makes for kind of hilarious television. But you're right. They are trying to sound like they're really outraged by this, and this is a big scandal, because that's what they said about Trump.
And I mean, kudos to them for doing so. And kudos to the Democratic lawmakers who are really trying to. I agree with you. I don't know why, but one does get the sense that it's sort of that they're trying to muster it up. And I think a lot of that comes to character. If you're on the left, if you're even on the center, things that they say about Trump, when you first hear them, they always sound more truthy, right? Because he's so flamboyant in his, disregard for norms. But then over and over and over, we've seen that they just were not the case. I agree with you that Biden has had a stunning first term. He's had a lot of successes, a lot of legislative successes, a lot of bipartisan legislative successes. I think I'm probably one of 3 people in America who thinks that in 20 years we're going to look back on both Trump and Biden and see them both as, pretty good presidents in the long run. Although with the caveat that the immigration situation, I think, is extremely dire and very, very, very bad, and 100% President Biden's fault. I do think that, it would be more dignified for the Democrats to just accept that Biden will probably lose to DeSantis than go through a rigmarole of replacing him with, a much less well-liked Democratic politician who will lose to DeSantis, right? There does seem to be a lot of wishful thinking, and you're right, the bench is so shallow. I mean, they really think Newsom has it. Who are they really picturing as an alternative? Gretchen Whitmer. I mean, it's very hard to think where they're. And I think, the conspiracy theory. I don't accept the conspiracy theory. However, I do think that there is something to the idea that the same people who worked overtime to get him elected now have a certain level of ambivalence towards him, at least in the media. The one area where it's not showing up, there was an article about this in the Wall Street Journal over the weekend, is in comedy. He's comedy gold, but the comedians, they seem so solidly in the Democratic Party's camp that, they won't do anything with it. And again, I can't imagine being a conservative or Republican voter and knowing that, of the, 30 channels, there's only one that you can turn on that's not going to insult you by refusing to do anything with this material. So,
has anyone mentioned, other than you and me and Brianna, has anyone brought up the point that clearly there's way too much way too many documents that are classified, or that the government has a knee-jerk classify everything approach. That it feels like a moment to actually talk about that. Like, the reason this is happening is because there is an inclination toward absurd secrecy and hiding things from the American people that is that is an element of the deep state. And this actually seems like a great time to talk about it. I haven't heard anyone bring that up except on this show. Have you?
I haven't, but I think for an obvious reason that people, the media is extremely partisan, right? So, who was going to bring that up, right? I guess Republicans could have brought it up when it was Trump, but now that it's Biden, right? And they're very happy to have, an excuse to sort of bash him on this, right? It seems like the moment has passed for them, whereas for the Democrats, right, there's, it's become increasingly clear, I think, with the Twitter files, with the Facebook file, your Facebook files, Robby, that there is. I don't want to use the word deep state because it sounds so conspiratorial, but that there is a sort of bureaucratic administrative class that is very much on the side of the Democrats to a certain degree, at least in this moment in time. And of course now seeing how the left has embraced things like secrecy and the FBI and, the CIA, anybody who they think was, a foe of Trump is now a hero, right? So, that now seems much more consistent with their abandonment of principles of free speech and transparency and accountability. You just see what an impact Trump has had on the political system here.
We also want to mention over the weekend, tragedy struck in Monterey Park, California, when a gunman shot and killed 10 people, left another 10 wounded. This took place late Saturday evening in a predominantly Asian American community on Lunar New Year's Eve after a popular festival in the area. The gunman, who has been identified as 72-year-old Hucan Tran, is reported to have died from a self-inflicted gun wound, according to CBS News. This all took place in a dance studio that the suspect was believed to have frequented sometime in the past. Obviously, our thoughts are with the victims and their families, and we hope for speedy recoveries for those who are injured and are hospitalized. We will, of course, continue to cover those tragic events as we gain more information, and we'll have more Rising right after this.